Okay, this is the chapter 3 screencast, the beginning of chapter 3. This is for 7th grade, and this chapter is on rational numbers. Rational numbers include decimals and fractions. So even though it's called rational numbers, a good chunk of this chapter is about fractions. And since you've been discussing fractions for a few years now, and decimals, hopefully most of this is review. So the first section, 3.1b, is about terminating and repeating decimals. The I can statement is I can write fractions as terminating or repeating decimals and writing decimals as fractions. So what it is just going back and forth from writing fractions as decimals and decimals as fractions, being able to convert, because that can be handy for different reasons. All right, terminating decimal just means that it ends. Terminating comes from the Latin terminus, meaning to end. All that high school Latin is paying off. So say something like 2.3, that would be a terminating decimal. Negative 3.752. It ends. So that's considered a terminating decimal. I started reading the next line. Repeating decimals are ones that do not end and have a pattern. So it's important that they have a pattern. That's the repeating part. So for example, 1/3 as a decimal is 0.3333333, and it just keeps going on and on forever, and it never ends. So we don't want to write like a whole bunch of threes. So what we do to represent that, we put a bar over whatever is getting repeated. So sometimes you'll see this as 0.3 with a bar over it. Some people like to put 1 3 and then another 3 and then the bar over the second 3. It means the same thing. It doesn't have to be just one number though. You could have the decimal 0.191919, and you would put the bar over what's repeated. So what is repeated is the 19. So it doesn't have to be just one digit. It could be several digits. You could also have a number like 0.2316161616 going on and on forever. Just put the pattern over whatever it is that gets repeated. So sometimes you have other other digits in front of the repeated part, and then once it starts repeating, then you put the bar over it. So that's how we show that. All right, when we're writing fractions as decimals, any fraction can be written as a decimal by using long division. Our favorite, long division. Yay. So your denominator becomes your little outside number. Your numerator is the number underneath your division symbol, your box, if you want to think of it that way, half box. All right, let's do an example. We want to write negative 3/8 as a decimal. Now the negative you don't necessarily need to make as part of your division problem. Just don't forget it at the end to put it back on. So I'm going to put the 8 on the outside, 3 on the inside, put a decimal, throw in some zeros. I usually just do 3 because 3 is my favorite number. And do your long division, bring your decimal straight up. 8 does not go into 3, so then you go to 30, add the 0 on. So 8 goes into 30. Let's see, 3 times. 3 times 8 is 24. Subtract. I get 6. Bring down a 0. 8 goes into 60 7 times. 7 times 8 is 56. Subtract 60 minus 56 is 4. Bring down another 0. 8 goes into 40 5 times. 5 times 8 is 40. And we're very happy when that happens because we don't want to add more zeros to see if this does end. So that means negative 3/8 written as a decimal is negative 0.375. 375 thousandths. All right, let's take a look at the one at the right. Write 2 1/8 as a decimal. So when we go to write this as a decimal and we have a mixed number, we know our number is going to be 2 point something. We just need to figure out what the something is. You could change the 2 1/8 to an improper fraction, but you're making more work for yourself because you're going to be working with larger numbers, and you're going to end up with 2 point something anyway. So if you know that, ignore the 2 for a second. Just work with the fraction part, not the whole number part, just the fraction part, the 1/8, and do the long division for 1/8. So 8 is on the outside, 1 on the inside. Put your decimal, throw in some zeros, bring your decimal straight up, and proceed. So 8 goes into 10 once. 1 times 8 is 8. Subtract, we get 2. Bring down a 0. 8 goes into 20 2 times. 2 times 8 is 16. Subtract, we get 40. 8 goes into 40 5 times. 5 times 8 is 40. And we're happy we don't have to add more zeros. So that means 2 1/8 as a decimal is 2.125. Okay? So what we're doing is just converting from fractions to decimals using long division. Now there are some that you might have memorized, like hopefully you have memorized that 1/2 is 0.5, 5/10. So that would make it easier. And there's some other ones that hopefully you have memorized, and you wouldn't have to do the long division part of it. All right, just some more things about repeating decimals. They have a pattern that goes on forever. So, for example, 1/3, if you're converting that to a decimal, if we do the long division, start it like you normally would. 3 goes into 10 3 times. 3 times 3 is 9. Subtract. Bring down a 0. 3 goes into 10 3 times. 3 times 3 is 9. Subtract, we get a 1. Bring down a 0. 3 goes into 10 3 times. 3 times 3 is 9. Subtract, we get 1. We could keep bringing down zeros, but hopefully you start to think, man, these numbers all look familiar. So hopefully you notice that the 3 starts repeating right away. If we just put a bar over it, that's 1/3 as a decimal, 0.33 repeating. All right, also part of this is what decimal place we have. So this would be 0.3 would be the tenths place. So if we say it properly, we would say 3/10, not 0.3. And how you say it properly is how you would write it as a fraction. So this is how we convert decimals to fractions. If you say it properly, that's telling you how you should write it as a fraction. So if we say this properly, 3/10, that tells us that it's going to be 3/10 for our fraction. So if we look at the next one, we have 0.34, but if we say that properly, the correct way, we would say 34 hundredths. So that means you would just write 34/100. And then usually you're asked to simplify if you can, and that would simplify to 17/50. The next one, we have 0.347. If we say that properly, that would be 347 thousandths. So if you write that as a fraction, that would be 347 over 1,000. I don't think you can reduce that one. Next we have 5.347, so we have a number out front. So it's 5 and 347 thousandths. So the number in front of the decimal, that's our whole number, and then the 347 thousandths looks like what we had before. So a lot less work going from decimals to fractions if you're comparing it. No long division in this. All right, follow any directions that you were given in class.